What's up, vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. I have an awesome video for y'all today because today's video is an interview that I did with longtime collaborator and friend of the show, Dr. Dan, who is a psychologist with his own personal UAP experiences. Had him on many times, and we brought along someone else named Renate. That's what I'm calling her. She kind of explains how to say her name a little bit better than what I just did, but she is from Norway. She is the president of an organization called UFO Norway, and in today's episode, we cover a lot of cases from Norway I've never heard. And not only have I never heard, but the details of these cases, I've never heard anything like it. So sit back and get ready to experience some brand new cases you've probably never heard of. And of course, vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every day about the UFO phenomena. Let's go, y'all. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we can make it happen. Now, let's start this interview. All right, vetters, I have some special guests in the house. You've seen him before on the show. Dr. Dan is here, but we also have another guest. And I hope I say this right. Is it Renate? How do I pronounce your name?
Very good. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is that, a typical Norwegian name?
Well, not typical, but not abnormal either. I think it's like 3,000 people in Norway is called that, and we're 5.5 million. So, yeah.
Oh, the fact that you even know how many people are called that in your country, I wouldn't be able to. I don't have that kind of statistic for Patrick in America.
They all know each other. They hang out together. All the
yeah. Yeah, I love it. Renate Khan, and they just get together. No, that's great. I'm super excited to have you here and have kind of an international dialogue about something that clearly all three of us have a passion, may be too much of a word, but I think it fits appropriately, right? A passion for this UAP topic. And something that I found interesting, Renate, I have followed your Twitter account, and I've seen lots of tweets that you do, and I've always been interested in your take on things, because you don't come from really the small bubble that I'm in most of the time, which is more American based, to be honest with you. And anytime I see other people outside of America talking about this, it's a constant reminder that this phenomena is global and worldwide, at least the interest in it. So I guess just as a quick question to kind of get us going, like what is your interest in UAP, and how deep does the well go?
Well, I would say that my interest is cheap, faster flight time.
Yeah.
I want to travel to America in a UAP. I want to go to America in 5 minutes instead of 12 hours or 20 hours. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding, but it's a part of it though, because I would want everyone to be able to travel a lot faster. I want us to make use of this technology. That's my main reason. I mean, it's interesting, of course. You want to know, are there NHI, non-human intelligence? Who are they? What do they want? Their intent? All of these things are very interesting. But my main interest is actually just trying to save the world, right? Just getting that fossil fuel energy, getting rid of pollution, trying to get forward in the world, and make use of that technology. It's kind of irritating because there's so many problems in the world when it has to do with energy and pollution, and you have like almost the solution just right in front of you, and just scientists and people don't want to look, and it's frustrating. Because I mean, if the world was a perfect place and we didn't have any pollution, the oceans weren't dying and all that kind of stuff, maybe I wouldn't be so interested. But I think it's really important. We should utilize this. So yeah.
That's interesting. That might be, I don't know if I've ever heard that answer before from somebody, which is a great, interesting, unique take about the interest in this phenomenon, to be honest with you. So you run an organization out of Norway, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it just called UFO Norway, or?
Yes, it is. We changed the name a year ago, and we didn't know there was so many paperwork attached to changing the name, so it's been so problematic. But yeah, before we were UFOs, but now we're called UFO Norway. So we're about 300 members or so in Norway, and we're like 5 members that run the show that are really active, and we have monthly meetings, and we have just had our annual meeting where we meet physical, and I was re-elected as a leader, which was great. And yeah, and we actually give out a magazine 4 times a year. So we have this editor that does a lot of work, puts in a lot of hours to make this magazine that we send out to the members. Yeah.
And what exactly does the organization? I mean, is it just your interest? Does that reflect what UFO Norway does, or is it more expansive?
Well, yes and no. We have on Facebook we have like 2,000 members, and there's a very vast mass of opinions. So sure. I would say I don't want to impose all my opinions on everyone, because that's not going to work. Yeah. But I have my opinions, but we're never going to be like this homogenic like group. It's impossible. It's like I like to use this analogy. It's like you take all the, in America you just have Republicans and Democrats, but in Norway we have at least like 7 parties. So I use this analogy: you take all those 7 parties and you try to make a common, goal, and as the common line, and it's just not possible. So, but we do report, we take reports in, and if there's something really exciting, we would like to do some field investigation. Unfortunately, they're not, those cases are far in between. Mostly we get lights in the sky, and we get like 2 reports every week. Yeah, but unfortunately we don't have like a lot of resources to do everything we wanted. So every week, every second week, if there's a huge pot in the lottery, I text one of my colleagues and I go, okay, now it's $1.3 billion, now billion kroners. We gotta win it, because we're gonna invest in UFO Norway. So we're trying.
I love that. That's hilarious. Dan, what do you know about UFOs in Norway? Because I've seen a few good videos come out of there before, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm actually working on this video with some UFO sightings in Norway. Obviously, it starts with and I'm not going to pronounce it right, Hazelton. Hasseldon?
Hasseldon. Yeah, almost.
Okay, lights. And there's a debate, I guess. Some people think that it's maybe geothermal in origin. Other people think it's extraterrestrial, perhaps. But they are certainly fascinating. I've got some video from that, and then there's actually more UFO history in Norway than I was aware of, according to ChatGPT, assuming that that's accurate. But yeah, I'm interested.
It started in like with the ghost rockets, but in the 1940s. They were actually before Roswell. But most of them were in Sweden, but they also transcended into Norway and Finland. So there were rockets. They called them ghost rockets because they didn't have another name for it. But they were like rockets that just would come in, stop, and turn around and just go other places. And actually, there's this person that I know. He's a part of UFO Norway, but he has his own company. And he actually last year, I think, he's good at getting resources and he's very interested in this. So he's actually had an expedition to go out and try and find one of these ghost rockets. If they malfunctioned and fell into the water and was laying in under the water. And he's actually doing something maybe this summer as well. So he spends a lot of time and energy on actually going after and looking for these ghost rockets. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I never heard of that. What is the biggest case from Norway, you think?
The biggest one, I would say, is the UFO ring.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was a ring that was made in. What year was it? It's about 1970 or something, I think. I've got it here. Around 1970s. And one night there was a lot of commotion, a lot of sounds. The dogs went crazy, electric wires went crazy and such. And people also on the ships, on the boats outside of this island, because it's an island out in the North Sea, they would see strange lights in the sky, and they would write it in the log. And also there was this woman who saw like a triangle, some kind of shape she saw in the sky. But all of these things happened, and then it was in the winter time. And then like 2 weeks later, they went around the island and someone was walking, and they saw this huge ring in the snow. So the snow was melted away, and there was this ring. And there are no roads there. This is out in the ocean, and there's like one road, and you have to go for a long time to get there. And when the summer came, they could see the ring, very obvious. And the ring is still there to this day in 2025. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I've never heard of that case.
Me neither. That's so fascinating.
I actually prepared something. Looky here.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the ring.
That's the ring.
Wow. 25 meters. Jesus.
Wow.
26, sorry.
26.
Yeah. Wow. 26. Yeah. Wow. That's insane. So what do people think it is?
And on the ground, this is what the crust, is that what you call it? Like pressed down on the earth is like this.
Yeah. The impression, right? The indentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still there today. And actually there was actually an investigation from the military, from the Norwegian military, that came up there, and they landed with an 8-ton Hercules helicopter, and they made no imprint on the ground, none whatsoever. So when they looked at this imprint, they could see that the stones had been turned into the grass, and some of the rocks were like friction marks.
Yeah.
On them.
Mm-hmm.
So they estimated that the object to make this impression had to be at least 50 tons.
Wow.
And they never found a conclusion. Some people said it had to be what we call in Norwegian like a mushroom ring. But when they came up and they looked at it, they concluded, no, it's not a mushroom ring at all. So there is no conclusion, and that's the only UFO attraction we have in Norway. There's this sign that says the UFO ring. Take that.
Was there any? Was the ground burnt, or was there any radioactivity? Or
no, I don't think they actually. I don't think they checked up for that, to be honest. Maybe the military did. Maybe I should ask them. That's a good question. Maybe I should ask the military, see if they have some documents from that time. You never know. I could ask them.
Because there's certainly been such, landings of craft that have left, evidence of their landing, burnt, scorched earth. So it's possible.
And also it's a bit funny because it's a one woman, she said she heard all this noise and there was something weird. So she went out, but she went on the wrong side of the house. She should have been on the back side of the house. So when this reporter interviewed her, she was like, "Oh, did you see it?" And no, I was on the wrong side of the house. And then she said, "Well, what are you going to do if they come back?" "I'm going to buy curtains." "Why?" "So they can't see you." Okay. Yeah, it was a bit.
I guess that's a good solution, to be honest. So it's
they
really
check
just
the agricultural, the sort of plants too, because there's often an impact on vegetation and plant life and.
If it's still there, right? If the indentation is still there, because are they cutting the grass around this area? Is there grass in that area?
It's just grass. It's like an open field with just grass. So I think it's just sheep or something that goes around there and eats the grass. It's like nature.
Interesting. Area. Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's still interesting. So in the middle of the circle, there's no disturbance. It's just this ring of sorts. Yeah. That's it. That's so interesting. Is the ring like symmetrical? Like it's a perfect ring? Not perfect. It's longer shape, but you know what I mean?
If it was a perfect circle, I would have drawn a perfect circle. But it isn't. It's oval.
Like an
Well,
egg.
well, what I mean is like,
Like,
is the egg, whatever shape it is it symmetrical? Like the lines are perfect
yeah,
going around, like, you know, like it was one object that indented, or was it made by one object, you know,
yeah, yeah.
making in, you know what I mean? Digging into it.
It's the same all the way around. The only difference is that the depth varies from 5
Oh,
to
that's
10
interesting.
centimeters. That's the only
That's
difference.
interesting.
Or else it's just kind of perfect around. Yeah.
Yeah. Or egg shape. Yeah. Like Dan said, the egg shape, which is interesting. That is
Mm.
kind of interesting. I
This
don't know
egg,
if I've heard of a case like this. I've never heard of a case with an indentation like this before. So this is unique to me.
yeah, it's not so well known case. For Norway, Norwegians, for the people who are interested, of course, we know of this, but yeah.
Sure. Sure.
I found
And
one
there's,
video. I think it's in Sweden, but not far from the Norwegian border. And these guys are out fishing, and in not a rowboat, so it's a speedboat, with all the fishing rods. And you see this object, and in the video they're calling it a USO, and it's just under the water and then comes up, and it's round, maybe oval shaped, and it comes up to the surface and then dives down right by the boat, and it all kind of scares them.
I've seen
Um,
that one. Yeah, it's a
You've seen that one?
yeah, it's a couple of years ago. There are speculations, could it be a whale that ate like a buoy and then kind of drags the buoy after it?
Hmm.
So it's a plausible explanation, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting video.
I've never seen that one. I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
That's a new one for me.
I'll send it to you. You'll see it in this
Yeah.
little montage thing put together.
Okay. No, that's super interesting. Are there other Norwegian cases that involve some sort of indentation like that?
No, not like that. I have another story. I have two more. Which one do you want to hear first? Or if you're gonna, I'm not sure if we're gonna go through all of them, but one of them says mysterious objects between Andøya and Bardufoss, two places, and then we have the recordings from Major Per Gavin, and then we have I bumped into aliens.
I mean, whatever you think. That all sounds interesting.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to start with the simple one. So this is a story. Of course, I cannot confirm that this story is real, but I will tell you, Norwegians do not go around telling other people that they saw aliens. I can promise you that is very rare, very rare. This story was not does not come from the man himself. It comes from his wife. Because she promised him that she would never reveal the story, but after he died, she told the story. So this is a story from a person called Leif Vinja, and he was a driver. So he had transported some goods from one place to another on this island called Ytterøya. With a few sheets of paper from the shop in hand, he gets out from the van and goes back. As he rounds the front of the car, he meets a small figure walking straight towards him. The figure was about 1.2 meters tall and dressed in bright blue suit. It had a head, hands, and feet like us humans, but the figure was smaller and the suit resembled an overall. The two stood about 2 to 3 meters apart. Both stopped abruptly, and then they spotted each other. According to Vinja, this person, the figure turned around, almost like a military turnaround, like a soldier marches. And this figure raises its knees and it bent its hands and elbows, with the upper arm hung almost straight down along the body. The little man in blue is said to then have got into a small vessel that was parked behind the shop. The craft stood there on 3 legs. And it was flat underneath and curved on the top, like a hemisphere. The diameter was about 2 meters. According to Leif Vinja, there were 2 figures inside this vessel. They were exactly the same and completely synchronously, is that the name? Synchronously, turned their heads and stared at him with intense and piercing eyes. And then the vessel took off and flew north. So yeah, that was it. And his wife was very concerned because when he came home, he was very disturbed. and he was talking about radiation. Am I in danger? All those kinds of things. And he had never ever thought about UFOs before, she said. So
wow, that is. Were there any other witnesses that came out later about this?
Unfortunately,
just
not.
him.
No, it's just
him. Wow. Okay. And he never saw. I mean, I don't know if we know. Did he ever see anything else ever again?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. There are no reports on that. You know.
What does the wife think about the story? Does she give her opinion on?
No, she doesn't not give her opinion about this. I guess she must have, at least she believed him, and she's probably like a little bit interested, or she wouldn't have shared the story if she was afraid of stigma or, you know, didn't believe it. But she shared the story with the newspaper afterwards. So yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Speaking of stigma, like, well, I'm curious about what it's like in Norway, and from the way you're communicating, what you've said, it sounds like there is quite a bit of stigma. You also said there's only a few cases, which probably means that there are a lot more cases, but people don't report them. In America, it's more accepting. We all report them. Maybe we're, you know, obviously more people are into it here. But yeah, tell us about what the sort of cultural awareness and acceptance is like there.
The stigma is alive. It's very much alive in Norway, unfortunately. We are very restricted, like people. So we're very want to stick to the basics, and we want to know the truth and science. And this is just too difficult for people to get their heads around. If you start to talk about it, people will just look at you, and then they will be, because we're very polite as well. So they don't go like, "What, are you crazy? What are you talking about?" They just go, and then they're like looking for a way out, and then, "Oh God, did you see the plane?" I'm like, "Oh God, just give me some input," but they just like freeze, and they're like, "Oh my God, she's I don't know, she's crazy or whatever." It's difficult. So I normally don't talk about it as much, because you don't get any feedback. People just freeze. I guess maybe if people were drunk in Norway, they talk more, but that's how the culture is. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is. But what I've noticed, of course, is that if you talk to people in a group, they're very much more negative. If you at some point talk to them in private, just you and that person, you realize they're more interested. They're not necessarily interested, but they go like, "Yeah, you're right. It could be something." And then they follow your lead, and they're interested, and they start asking questions. But if they're in a group, immediately they will go like, no, I don't want to talk about it.
That seems to be a common thing, to be honest with you. I feel like that's the same thing here. If you're in a group setting, people are more likely to kind of go with the narrative of this is a joke or whatever. But if you get them privately, they probably heard a story from a family member or a friend, or they have their own experience. They'll tell you.
Yeah,
that's typically what happens. So that's interesting. So that probably means that there are a lot more cases in Norway that just unfortunately are never going to come out because people just feel a little weird about talking about it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, for some reason, I think that maybe there are less UFOs here as well, to be honest. We are also like a huge country with a lot of distances where there's nothing. And we're only 5.5 million people. So I think that, like, we're a small country, and I think compared to the United States, there's a lot of more reports. So there's something to it also.
Sure.
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest factor. And then I was thinking, I read somewhere that there is a correlation between belief in the phenomenon and religiosity in the country. So the more religion there is, the more people that are religious in a country, the higher the belief in UFOs will be, which sort of makes sense. Yeah. So Sweden, I know there's not a lot of churches. Well, there are churches, but not a lot of churchgoers. And in turn, there are not a lot of believers in UFOs. So I think that makes kind of sense, right? I mean, they're both they have a spiritual nature to them. We can't prove either. Although I guess we might be closer to proving the existence of non-human intelligence or technology than one could prove, obviously, that Jesus Christ was born 2,000 years ago. But anyways, it's an interesting correlation.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're not very, very religious in Norway. We're not. Actually, I do have Christian colleague, and I asked him about this, and he said, "Well," and I said, "Well, what happens if this turns out to be true?" And he said, "Well, our whole fundament just kind of gets ripped off under us." And I was like, "Okay, so it's not good at all." He said, "It's not good." But then somehow we talked further, and then he went, "You know what, Renate? The Bible never talks about math, but we know math exists. So maybe it could exist, just not mentioned in the Bible." So it was interesting. So he kind of was thinking about it, and yeah. So he changed.
I mean, with that being said, it's like TVs, iPhones, right? That's not in the Bible. Like these things come later. The knowledge of it comes later of how to, right? Like, yeah. I mean, plus I've heard people, I live in the South of the United States, which is what they call the Bible Belt. Okay. So a lot of religious people here. And, I've heard people kind of just say, well, yeah, I don't think we're only the only creation of God. He probably made other life out there in the universe. He just didn't talk about it in the Bible. But yeah, it doesn't take away, like, because sometimes the idea is that, humans are special, and right, made in God's image, therefore special, unique. There couldn't be other life because, well, did he make them in his image as well, or what's going on here? But I think a lot more people are becoming open to it. For the reasons your friend said too, kind of, right? That same sort of thing. Like, yeah, God could do more than what he's told us. Right? He's the creator. If he's the all powerful, he clearly could have done other work that you don't know about, right? He's not a first time director. Yeah, he's put out other films before. Right. So
religion has an amazing ability to adapt to change.
Sure.
The biggest change was when
the Vatican.
When Jesus died. That was a big shock. Like, how are we gonna, our Lord and Savior died, but then, oh no, he died for our sins. And I'm not gonna sort of be too negative on Christianity, but they reframed it extremely well to make it work. And I think, it would happen in this situation. So, okay, there is aliens exist. They live somewhere else. They've been traveling. God made, another species. And why would it be just us?
Yeah, and I think it's like a couple of years ago that the Vatican went out and said that there could be other species, actually. Yeah.
Yep. The Vatican has made some interesting, movements in their beliefs and expanding them. And because Christianity does change, like there's different denominations, right? It starts to branch off and splinter off into different ideas with the same umbrella idea, but when they get down to the nitty gritty, the details, some of it, they just take different approaches, whether it be literal or, more metaphorical, some of the stories. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting correlation between, I think they both, like you said, Dan, they both require some of the same, traits, human traits to sort of jump into it, right? Believing in something greater than yourself or something outside of ourselves. So it does seem to go hand in hand. Some might say, they say there's a leap of faith, right, in religion. Well, some might say that for UAP as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that's universal is our fear of death. And some people cope with that fear of death with religion, some people with belief in the phenomenon, and other people with the staunch belief that there's nothing. So to each his own.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is interesting. At least with life, well, we know there's life. We are life. So the idea that there would be other life, that's what always fascinates me about this topic, is that there is a stigma and that it's laughed at, because it's like, why is that so crazy to think there's other life? How many species are on this planet? We know life exists. So why is that so crazy to think it's not out there? And I get it. It's another step to think, okay, they're out there. And then there's one more step. They've come here, right? That's two different things. So I get it. There's some steps to take, but I don't know why sounds so crazy.
When I try to discuss this with people, the few times that I actually do, almost like everyone I talk to, except maybe very Christian people, I would say, well, do you think there's life out in the universe? And almost everybody will say, of course there's life somewhere out in the universe. And then I go, is it really that far-fetched to think that they would have come here? And then they go, oh, no, that's not possible because, the speed of light and we can't travel and all these arguments. And I go like, well, come on, there's tons that scientists don't understand about the universe. I mean, before what's that new telescope, the newest one?
James Webb.
Yeah, James Webb. Before James Webb, everybody knew that the universe was, I don't know, like 4-point-something million years or something. I don't remember it. Was it? Anyway, it's not that, because we always get new data and always get new information. So how can you say that, no, we can't do this? Like we're the top of the chain when it comes to technology. It's like, come on.
And then also they discovered, I think, that stars are traveling faster than the speed of light. And then, I mean, yeah, not only just the discoveries, but maybe the laws of physics are different somewhere else. Like, who's to say that they, are consistent throughout the universe? They could be different on another planet, or they have resources that help them, overcome gravity or use it differently. We really have, no idea. And I think it's just equally closed-minded to think, okay, not that anyone thinks that there isn't another species out there. I think everyone now kind of says that. But for them to say, no, they haven't traveled here, that's just as absurd as, 20,000 years ago, someone hasn't traveled from America or to Europe. I mean, the distance might be relatively kind of the same. It's unfathomable how to, traverse by air, let's say, which would be unfathomable to them.
Absolutely.
But then the next thing that they say is, well, if they have come here, why on earth have they not made themselves, presented themselves?
Yeah.
And I go like, why would they do that? Would we do that? Would we just travel to somewhere else and just land on their white lawn? We can't do that. You need to know who these people are. Like, what are their capabilities? What do they do? Do they have like weapons? How can they harm us? Of course, they're not just going to land. They have their own motives, their own things to do. So you have to kind of make them think differently, because of course they're not just going to land and go, hello, what are you guys doing? It's not that simple. It's it's difficult. It's difficult. And then they're like, why can't we see them? We've got all these satellites. But the satellites focus on these things. They don't focus on UAP. And then there are UAPs that are very small. The satellites don't see them. They don't track them. Then they would have to track like everything, like every balloon, every bird. I don't know. So it's difficult for a lot of people to understand that we can't see them. That we don't have, like, why isn't NASA saying that they saw them? And I say, well, maybe they don't want to, because what are we going to do? So
I would like to see what NASA has from a satellite imagery point of view, because from my understanding that there's a lot of satellite imagery and they can go back to a certain day and a time for most parts of the world and actually come up with that footage, and we can say, okay, this event in 2008 in Texas happened, or this event in London in 94, and who knows, maybe they should be going through, and there's enough cases to kind of say, okay, did that happen or not? We should at least find one.
Yeah.
Sure.
But did you hear about Beatrice Villanelle, the Swedish?
Yes.
Yeah, because she has like these
stars.
Stars. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I remember doing a video on that. That was a fascinating case, which not enough people I thought were interested in that, because I was fascinated by that. And I mean, I think that's a big part too, is the information is there. We're just not, either don't have access to it, don't have the resources to go through it, or we don't even know what we're missing, but there's data somewhere, right, when they talk about, hidden this, hidden that. So it does make it more difficult. We don't, sometimes we know where to look, but we can't. And other times, I would say most of the time, we don't even know where to look for this information, but I bet it's readily available.
Yeah. But sometimes I also think that I get like a bit frustrated, because it's like, no matter what kind of information that comes out, people are still going to say, no, this is fake. This is fake. We've got this photos made by AI or whatever. And it's like, I swear to God, if there was an alien that walked right on the front white lawn, people would go like, nah, I think maybe it's like an abnormality, you know, maybe it's just got a gene default or whatever. I was like, you can't win. I think it's just
yeah. I mean, we didn't really go to the moon.
Yeah.
There's evidence that we went to the moon, but you know, I heard like 30 to 50% of the country don't believe that we went to the moon.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Crazy.
so that's of America. I'm sure not Norway.
No,
well,
probably not in Norway.
Yeah. I mean, people still think the Earth is flat, space isn't real, birds aren't real. I mean, there's a lot of so
Sorry.
you're right. You're right to some extent. Like no matter what happens or what comes out, there's always going to be people that just don't believe whatever the narrative is or a new thing. I'm sure there'll be a theory down the road where they'll say the internet never existed. You know, it's all fake. This isn't real. You know, I don't know. It's just you're always waiting for this new thing of someone to come up with and actually use social media to boost their ideas, right, about this. But at the same time, UAP is interesting because it's also fraught with. This is a tongue twister, but fraught with fraud, meaning there is a lot of fraud and hoaxing and people making things up in the UAP community, and it does make it very difficult because you've got this interesting dynamic happening where there are a lot more serious people taking this subject seriously than ever before, in my opinion. And the stigma is kind of decreasing, but at the same time, it's still hanging on to. There is still a stigma. You still have people, basically covering this the same way they've covered it for the last 30 years. But I think people want to change, right? They want it more grounded. They want it more serious. They want politics involved. They want groups started. They want research, science, right? Getting behind this. The technology point that you made about your interest in this topic, right? That technology, that's all kind of new, I think, taking that approach, to be honest with you, because now it makes it real. Now it makes it this real thing that could be possible. And I think it's just a different way to approach it.
The power that the United States would lose, not only there's a species more powerful than the government, but there's technology that would decrease their power, and the money that comes from all those resources, like free energy, could destroy our economy, or at least hood it. But I'm sure it's all about control, and that's why I think like extreme skepticism is psychologically really kind of fascinating. I mean, I think it's born out of fear as well. And the desire to control and regulate one's internal physiology, one's external world. You're trying to predict, obviously everything you can, and it's easier to be very skeptical.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the technology, also Norway is a big oil distributor. We get a lot of oil, so we're very rich because of oil. So this technology will not be good for our economy, but you got to look at the bigger picture. So also I would hope that the Norwegian government would want to go into this and see if we could not lose all our money, and maybe we could be making this technology instead.
Absolutely. It would be the new oil rush. It would be the new oil rush, right? This new technology of people adapting.
But there's also one thing that's a bit frustrating, I guess, with the UAP topic, and that is because we're scarce on information. There's long, timelines between the big cases. What happens is that when you're so engaged in this topic, you really want to know, you want to figure it out, you want to talk about it, you want to have a community. But at some point you get kind of like you get there's too little information.
Yeah.
So what happens then is that you kind of start to add things that maybe you wouldn't have added if there was enough information, enough things to kind of take out. Oh, this is happening. And then it just like, so it's a lot of theories and a lot of speculation. So I try to say to people, I say, oh, look at this video. It's really interesting. But I say, but please remember what he actually says and what his speculation is, because they're two completely different things. And I think a lot of people just in their eager, like their interest, they want to know, and then they just kind of go and roll, and all of a sudden you're like really far out, kind of. And I'm not the one to say that this is wrong, but I kind of try and stick to the basics and kind of be down to earth, if you can say it like that.
Yeah.
So I guess I wish people could just be a little bit more calm. If it's a quiet period, just let it be a quiet period. Don't like make things.
That's really great point.
Or whatever.
That's a really, really great point. And I think it also goes
Yeah.
to stories and experiences that people have, sticking to the facts and not embellishing them or not going into greater detail. And I know it's hard. We're all vulnerable to that. So you tell a story and then you tell it to new people, and okay, well, how do I make it sound more interesting? And and people want it to be more interesting. So it takes a lot of kind of character, and I do admire David Fravor. He's sort of kept his story the way it is, even though it doesn't make it more exciting when we listen to him. It's more believable.
Sure.
So I've been trying to do that, obviously, but with my encounter, I can sometimes really think about like how I felt right before, what I might have seen before I saw this massive orb in front of me, but I don't remember. So I'm not even gonna try to remember or speculate how I might have felt. I was smoking a cigarette and probably thinking about nothing.
Sure.
I've never seen anything at all. So
yeah,
much.
me neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
I haven't either. I have zero experiences. I think what happens is it's kind of just human nature. And I think it happens with all stories, like we're kind of talking about. Like you start to tell the story, people ask you questions about the story, right? And now you start to think about things maybe you didn't before, and then you just start to fold it in, like making a dough, right? You just start kneading it in and folding it in, and it becomes part of the story, right? Essentially. And as it grows, the longer you tell it and the more you tell it, yeah, it just starts to beef up. The fish goes from this big I caught to, this, you can't even see my hands. It's just massive, right? This big fish now all of a sudden. So yeah, I think we're prone to that. I don't know if there's any way around that, right? How do you, I mean, there's just no way, even sticking to the facts. Facts get added.
I guess we got to be brave enough to be boring sometimes. Just say, I don't know.
Very true.
I don't know. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that.
Sure.
So, but we all want to, be kind and add to the story, but we just got to be brave and be boring.
Sure. Well, that's well
what
said.
I find though, and I, a few days will go by, I guess more rarely now, but a few days will go by where I won't post something on X. And then, but I'll want to find some good story or a video. I want to create a video, and this is not to gain followers. It's not a moneymaker. I'm a therapist. This is just a side hobby, a nice escape. But I want to do that. And today I had that urge, like I've got to create something really cool because I want people to stay interested. I want people to continue to believe, because I have had sufficient proof for me. And I bet, but I can't say, that if you saw what I saw, you wouldn't need any evidence. And so it's hard not to get kind of overzealous, or not try to, I don't know, kind of push the narrative when you know that there's some truth behind it. It's not a narrative, it's actually something that's true. But one still needs to be patient and realize that, okay, other people haven't had their experience. They may have to come to it on their own, just like someone having a religious experience. You can't kind of force them to have that an experience. But that's just why I think I get impatient sometimes, because I've seen it and nothing else explains it. Although I spent years trying to figure it out scientifically. But,
you want everyone else to know, right? I get it.
Yeah.
So what's your take? Like your basic thoughts about the phenomenon. What is that, Dan? Like the basic, like the short points.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think my reaction or a tendency is to assume that it comes from somewhere else. So it's extraterrestrial. I know that's a culturally kind of conditioned belief, probably, or assumption. But I know that there is a phenomenon, and it seems to travel. It seems to have energy. It seems to have interest in us. It seems to, and I would say maybe this is me warning them to be protective of us. Like I remember when I saw James Fox's The Phenomenon, and there was this line. I think he was talking with the politician Harry Reid, and Harry Reid said, even if we did fire nuclear weapons, they wouldn't let them explode. Something like that. It was like we couldn't even fire one if we wanted to. And I remember sleeping so well for weeks, thinking, because I grew up in England was born in 77, so 87 to 91 before the Berlin Wall. I mean, that was a scary time. I mean, it was on the verge of, like, the whole world was on the verge of Armageddon. nuclear war. And it just came with a lot of relief. So part of me, yeah, it feels like wants them to be protecting us and be out. And, you know, some of the encounters have been along those lines. Or why are they shutting down the nuclear, you know, silos and all that. But so going back to your question, I just know that there's a phenomenon that exists. It's interested in us. I think it is probably going slowly, deliberately, to protect us, maybe more than them. I'm assuming that they are very advanced, but I also don't want to assume that, you know, we have some talents and abilities and we're also advanced and we have things that maybe they don't have. So I'm sure they're doing it slow and deliberately. So that slow drip metaphor kind of makes rational sense to me. Of course, I have no idea. There's times where I feel, okay, could there be some atmospheric, biological, fifth species kind of thing that presents itself as orbs, and that you know, when we look at it in a camera, it can look like a craft or an object. There could be something like that. That would be less exciting, certainly. But when I saw what I saw, it had energy. I had biological effects from it. I don't think that was deliberate. I don't think it was trying to hurt me, but I was there and I didn't step away. And but I don't think, okay, it came to me for a reason and I was chosen. No, it was a 1 in a million chance and I happened to be there. And so I haven't answered your question because I don't know. I'm a believer in the phenomenon, whatever the phenomenon is.
Sure. Yeah. Wow.
I tend to agree to most of what you said. I guess I like to use the term extraterrestrial. It's just because I want more people engaged. I want more people like this. It's one thing when we're in this bubble, the UFO bubble, and that's nice. But you know, to get forward, it doesn't really matter. We got to expand. We got to get more people in. And so that's why I like to just say extraterrestrial, because people will understand that. If you talk to people, go, yeah, you know, they might be interdimensional. They might come from under the earth. They might have lived here centuries under the ocean. People are gonna go like, no way. I mean, I know that there's life out there. Just don't tell me that they're in some dimension that we can't. I mean, we know we can travel from star to star. We don't know if we can travel through a dimension. Now, people, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that's what I like to say to keep it simple, to get more people engaged.
Yeah, you don't start with abductions, for example.
No,
you'll just say, no, they might have visited. Yeah.
So yeah, and I kind of think of it more like a gray area. I think that I don't know if they're malevolent or benevolent. That's the right word. Yeah. I think maybe they're just in the middle like us. Like, I'm making a lot of assumptions, so I'm being clear about that. I don't know these things. These are my assumptions based on all kinds of documentaries I've seen, people talking. I think they're just like in the middle, and I don't think really they're here to protect us. I don't think so. I think it's a nice thought, but I don't think so. I think it's like when you meet another country and you have to have this diplomacy and you're trying to figure it out. How are they? What kind of weapons do they have? How do they work? And of course, they're probably interested, you know, scientifically. But if we ever get to know that they're there, and which I think they will, I think in my lifetime we will experience this. You know, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be like they're coming down and we're like, oh, our saviors, or it's all rainbows and unicorns. No, it's going to be a lot of hard work. And for a lot of people, it's going to be devastating for them, because it's going to crash their whole like the whole view of the world. And some people say, let's just have, you know, what do you call it? This disclosure, it's the term.
Catastrophic disclosure.
Catastrophic disclosure. Let's just add that. And I go like, no, you haven't thought this through. There's a lot of good people out there who will have their lives completely ruined by this. You got to take it step by step. And what about the kids? There's a ton of kids in the world. Are they just going to be like, oh, there's an extraterrestrial. Oh, my mother and father's crying. Oh, gee, that's bad. You gotta be, you know, diplomatic and think things through and have a good plan. And I think that's something in the United States and maybe the EU, maybe they're in the loop. You know, they need to make a good plan, and I really hope they're doing it, but I'm afraid they're not. So
Oh,
it's going to be okay, but it's going to be tough times when it happens, I think, and there's going to be a lot of turbulence. But we'll come
sure.
out good in the end.
Yeah.
5 years,
No.
10 years, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, we got to remain hopeful, right, and
Yeah.
optimistic. Either way, no matter what the outcome is, it's best to just think we're going to be okay, even if we're not. But you had a couple more stories. Can we hear one
Yeah.
more? I
Yeah.
don't want to make sure we don't lose those. This has been a great talk, by the way. I've loved hearing y'all's thoughts. Just FYI.
Okay, so this is I'll take this one first. This is a story that says mysterious lights between Andøya and Bardufoss are two places in Norway. So this is in August in 1959. So these are old stories. There was a major who was flying this Dakota plane, Major Skeppel, and another one, the navigator, was Ragnar Rygnestad. And they were told to take an extra transport mission. When they landed at Andøya, they learned that this extra mission was actually a so-called NATO standing group. So they were picking up officers from NATO. The group included a total of 17 generals and admirals. So this was a very important high top group. And they had been standing out on the airport waiting for them to come. And when they were waiting, they actually saw a round luminous object traveling along with the plane. And the object made a half circle around the airport before disappearing. So the plane landed, and Major Skeppelen took the generals and admirals into his plane, and they took off again. After the plane took off again with the occupants, at leveling heights, Major Skeppelen see possibly the exact same object, a large luminous orb, which came in from behind and up the starboard side at a respectful distance. Soon the object came on the starboard side of the plane, but still at a respectful distance. Suddenly, another glowing orb appeared over the other one with a thin luminous line between them. And then a third sphere appears on top of the two. And then they went along with the plane. And then suddenly the top object disappeared, the middle disappeared, and the original object disappeared. And that was it. The plane had to abrupt their original destination and had to stop somewhere else. So the captain and the navigator, they had to report to the military police. They agreed that the object had to be about 15 to 20 meters, and it was intelligently maneuvered. If the generals and admirals were interrogated or gave a report is unknown. So they all saw it. Then we're in the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Multiple witnesses. Yeah. Was it on radar? Do you know?
Unknown.
Okay.
So this was actually kept a military secret for 10 years until it was released to the press.
It's Why did they release it?
I have no idea. Good question. But at least it's the one person, one of the navigator. No, not the navigator. The pilot. He is in the newspaper telling his story. So I guess for some reason it maybe got declassified, and he just decided to go into the newspaper, I think.
Sure. Well,
and
sorry, Dan. He was going to ask one more question before we go to this last one.
It's nothing special. I was just thinking about the size of crafts that people see, and the average seems to be like 150, 100 feet. And I think you said, was it 30 to 50 meters?
15 to 20 meters.
15 to 20. Okay, so yeah, 50 to 100 feet is sort of seems about average, like, because that's like car to truck size, right? Or large car size. But anyway, yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right, then we have the last one, and this is from 1958 to 1965. This is a major called Per Govin, and he was a radar operator. So he had the responsibility for radar operations. And from 1958 to 1965, they made at least 150 observations of UAPs, but they didn't call them UAPs, of course. Once or twice a month, we could register these phenomena on radar. Suddenly, they were there at the same speed as the fighter jet. The next moment, they stood still, and then they moved away at a speed bordering to the insane. The first time I caught one, I thought it was an echo, but later we experienced the four making four independently of each other. And the confusion was total. In the end, we had to send up some fighters when the phenomena occurred. No, sorry. In the end, we had to stop sending up fighters when the phenomena occurred because it became too expensive. Besides, we had the feeling of making ourselves a fool from the pilots. And it was also when the planes came up, they disappeared, of course. So they never saw anything, except for later. I'll come to that. It seemed that when the UFOs were equipped, the planes also picked them up on their weapons radars. Then it seemed that the UFOs were equipped with some radar warnings, because at the same moment that they were illuminated, they just disappeared. And then there's one story that stands out. It was in autumn in 1950s, and suddenly Major Per Gavin picked up an echo that flew in the same speed as a jet plane. Since it was not on the flight plan, I sent up a F-84G Thunderjet to identify the aircraft. The pilots climbed up and flew above the clouds. On their way back down, one of them discovered a large red ball. It flew against the direction of the wind at an altitude of about 7,000 feet. The pilot could not identify the object, but he was a fearless fellow, and he said he could fly through it. Thus, he flew the fighter plane towards the red ball. The moment he touched the red ball, it disappeared. It also disappeared from radar. When he landed, the whole plane, apart from the plexiglass, was colored red. The plane was dismantled and the plates were sent to the most famous universities and research stations around the world, but none of them were able to identify the die. So we would like to know where those parts went. That would be interesting. But it's old. It's from 58 to 65. Wow. But if someone has the time and energy, it would be interesting to see, do they have some documentation on this die?
Sure. Oh my God.
That's
well,
very
that's
interesting.
Right. That's so interesting. I've never heard a story like that ever. That is so fascinating.
What did they call that one?
What?
Yeah.
What
is the
that
case?
One?
Yeah. What's it called? Does
case?
It have a name? Yeah.
No, not really. It's just like it's a Major Per Gavin. If you Google that, you'll probably find the Norwegian old newspapers or something. It's just, yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm just going to do a little research because it sounds interesting.
The red jet case. That's what I would call it.
Yeah, the Norwegian, the headline in the newspaper was, they played hide and seek with the Norwegian pilots. Yeah. So.
Wow. Okay.
I got a question for you. So in your meetings, because you said, and I'm switching gears here a little. Sorry, was that the last account you're going to share?
Yeah.
So I'm curious in your meetings, because you have a meeting every month, is it?
Yeah.
Yep. So what do you talk about? Is one question, and two, if someone has an experience, do they call you? Is there someone to sort of talk them through it? I know you don't get a lot of calls, but I'm just interested in kind of the, I don't know, customer service, if you will, of that experience. And yeah.
Well, I would say when it comes to experiencers, I think they're, I don't know, far and in between. We don't have a lot of contact with them. I think there's this other group that talks more to experiencers. And if someone had come to us, we would of course not dismiss them. We would listen to them, of course. But I think there's still such a huge stigma in Norway that people just don't talk about it. But there's people on Facebook that would comment on cases, and they will say, yeah, well, I know they're real because, I've felt them more. So there are people who comment and make you think, okay, are these people experiencers or what? But there's not we don't get calls from experiencers. Very, no.
Do you know the name of the organization that does do that or is available for experiences? You don't know the name of it, but it's in Norway.
No, not in Norway. I think there's another organization that's called something like the Paranormal something. Yeah, I think maybe they go they attract more to that group. Okay. I know there's another one. Yeah. So, but because to be honest, the UFO group, we're open for a lot of things, but I think we shouldn't say that experience. How could I put it? We're trying to find out what UFOs are. We're still in this kind of, is it actually a natural phenomenon. We can't exclude that. I don't think it is, like 99% sure it's not, but we're like balancing on the top. So we're not going down to like, yes, it's NHI. Yes, we know. Yes, experiences are real. We're not there. So I know that a lot of people in the group are, but we're like not this homogenic base. We're like a lot of different opinions. So
Like
experiences, we don't have that very close up, no. And in the meetings, we pretty much talk about, what are we going to do? Do we have some projects we want to accomplish? But often it's a lack of time and money, to be honest. All of us just have like normal jobs and normal family time, and so there's a lot of things we would want to do, but we just don't have the time, unfortunately. I know
Has there been a case that I don't know, since you've been in your role, that if you had the resources, gosh, it would be great to take that road trip and do some investigative work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it would. That's why I'm oh, god damn it, they haven't called me. No, I didn't win today either. I didn't win the
lottery. Yeah. But has there been a specific case, like of someone shared this encounter, or not encounter, I guess, a sighting, and it crashed or something in northern part of Norway, but we can't go because of funding? Have you been in those situations?
No, not crashed. We have no crash stories in Norway, except for the ghost rockets, if they are crashes, or they just went into the water. We don't know. There's this famous story from Norway, but we had someone in the Norwegian organization that spent a lot of time investigating this, like 20 years ago, and the conclusion was that it was false. But you might see it somewhere else. It's called what's it called again? Spitsbergen case, and that's there are claims that this UFO crashed on the Spitsbergen, and there were aliens, and they took them out. But its basis from this news article in Germany that said and laid out the whole story. But this person who wrote it, we can't find it. It's a person that doesn't exist. So I'm leaning towards this being a fake one. It would be nice if it wasn't. But,
you may have to email me some of these names, because you say a name and I'm like, oh, I'm going to write that down. I'm like, wait, how do I spell that?
Yeah.
So you have to, put them in a DM. That would be great, because I want to do a little research on some of these cases. I think they sound really interesting.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, they're super interesting. These are such unique outcomes. They kind of start off very similar to ones I've heard, but then the outcome is different. The plane turning red, for instance, that's leaving behind physical evidence, and a lot of it, right? Could involve so many different things there with technology. I just never heard anything like that. The indentation, that's also a unique one to me as well. The plane traveling with the generals and the three orbs, that sounds like something Patrick Jackson would talk about, his sphere theory. I don't know if you've heard of that guy, but he's got this sphere theory, how they work together to do things, and that story totally fits in line with he would be interested to hear that. So, but look, guys,
Patrick, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, of course.
So there's been a lot of news recently, and you've covered it very well. Big stories, new whistleblower. There's been, there was the weaponized whistleblower. And then you've done a bunch of big stories the last 4 days, I think, or just the last week. It's been crazy in the community, right? What's the most interesting to you, the most convincing to you?
Just recently?
Yeah, like I know there's the metal orb that's out there, the one that I think your wife helped translate, which was very helpful. And then the whistleblower that worked for the Pentagon, and so recently, I would say in the last week or two.
I think Matthew Brown's pretty interesting. That's Jeremy Corbell's whistleblower that him and George Knapp talked about. Yeah, I think he seems just genuine. I believe he believes what he's saying, right? And I think he's telling his story. I've liked him because there's been a couple points in the interview where he could have gone further, like we were talking about, added to the story, and he was just like, I don't know about that. And I respected that, because he wasn't just throwing things in, like exactly like we were talking about before. He wasn't doing that, and he was just kind of telling, this is what I experienced.
There was some
This is what
restraint there,
happened to me. Yeah, there was
Sean
restraint, and
Kirkpatrick's
he could have
Sean
speculated more.
Kirkpatrick's response was unbelievable, or just very reactive and defensive.
Sure.
And I don't know if you heard that. It was just sort of out of character, and
yeah,
almost implies that, okay, he's touched a nerve here.
he definitely touched a nerve, because he didn't need to respond, right? You wouldn't respond if it's all bullshit. So I think it definitely touched a nerve. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's true all the way, but it makes me think at least part of the story is true. And he maybe doesn't come out as well. And he felt the guy wasn't describing it properly, but that there's something there. Right. And that is interesting for sure. But yeah, I think Matthew Brown's testimony has been interesting. But at the same time, there's been a couple things that, almost pull away from that. The sphere coming out of Colombia, this Reddit whistleblower that came out, right, about Bigelow Airspace and all that. I think those kind of things hurt, to be honest, because now we're not talking about something that is maybe more compelling, right? Someone who is telling maybe a more compelling story. So, it's always always a give and take in this community. When something big comes out, you also all of a sudden have all this other stuff that comes out that kind of makes it seem a little crazy. And then you just put it all together, right? People will just throw it all together. Oh yeah, all that bullshit. When it's like, wait a second, this one story is kind of compelling, but we're not going to talk about it because these other things came out as well. So I don't know.
The part two of Matthew Brown seemed to suggest that there could be a lot of sort of war game strategy.
Sure. Which there is. There is, and that doesn't take away from some of the other things he was saying as well, right? But I think I just thought he was just real honest about what he saw, like especially the ARV part where he admitted, I don't know what that means. That doesn't necessarily mean alien. Like, I don't know what it means. And I respected that. Again, there was a lot of points where I just respected. He could have gone way further and fed the UFO dogs, right? He could have fed the UFO dogs just raw meat right there and said a bunch of things that maybe other people in this position would have, and people would have just ate it up.
Why did the Pentagon let him say all that stuff, though? That's kind of odd.
Well, I think about that a lot of stuff, right? How are they allowed to reveal what should be classified information?
Well, they said, this is what I'm going to share. And they said, oh, no, go ahead. We don't have a problem with that. And then he's talking about being worried about, I could be executed and imprisoned. Well, no, they just gave you permission to share all this.
I think they give permission because he's not talking about specific places. He's not giving up the technology of it, how they're seeing this. Because the adversaries, they want to know what kind of weapons, instruments you have, but he's not giving away all of that. I mean, for other people, he might just be telling a story. So, and the Pentagon can just say, he's just telling a story. So it would be worse if he said, on this time, on this date, on this location, these coordinates, this happened. Then
with this method of photography or capture or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but he's interesting, and there's more stuff to come out next week. This hearing that we're having in the U.S. Congress potentially may be off, but now it may be back on. I don't know. They announced today that officially there is no meeting next week. Our UAP hearing, that they called it off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Christopher Sharp from Liberation Times, that's what he said. But then he came back out and said, well, now I have other sources telling me it could be back on, but no official word. So, it's kind of, I don't know what's happening. The Skiff got canceled with David Grush, Arrow, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening honestly in that journey, so whatever. But yeah, look, guys, this was awesome. I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking. It flew by, to be honest with you. And I really appreciate all y'all's thoughts and just talking about this kind of openly and, without any stigma, right? That we can just kind of give our opinions and see where people come from and just see what it's like across the globe, what other people are thinking.
Yeah,
I think
we've
as
got quite an
Americans, we get
international
stuck.
audience, so.
Well, we do. Bennett definitely does.
You do.
I know people watch from all over the world, but you know, I often, and I think a lot of people do get, you know, sidetracked and think, oh, this is only happening in America. This is an American issue, and it's not at all. So yeah, just thank y'all so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Bye.